Welcome back to another episode of the Brawn Body Health and Fitness Podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by Marianna Bedoya to be discussing her own fitness journey. We're also going to be discussing a lot of fitness random things, such as Marianna's favorite exercises. We talk about food, we talk about cultural influences on food, and so much more in this episode. Marianna is absolutely jacked if you haven't seen her before. She makes me look small in comparison. Highly recommend you check out her Instagram, her TikTok, and all of her other social media channels. Before we get to this episode, here's a quick word from our sponsor. Marianna, welcome to the show. Really excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Just kind of talking about your backstory a little bit. People see your content now, and it seems like you're one of the biggest people in the gym, for lack of a better way to put it. Like, shoulders are bigger than mine. So how did you get started on the whole fitness journey?
So it did not start off with lifting in the slightest. I was finishing up college and I had packed on a good amount of weight, like most people do after 4 years of college. And I was going into my grad program and I was going to be, since I was going to school for teaching, I was going to be in schools a lot and I just was not feeling super comfortable in my own body image and things like that. So I decided all right, I'm just gonna lose a couple pounds. I'm gonna start going to the gym. Like, I had played sports growing up, but then once I got to college, that was put on the back burner. So I was like, all right, let me start going to the gym. Let me lose some weight. And I went the whole cardio bunny route and just overdid it with the cardio and not eating enough. Pretty much what you should not do, which is why I'm such a strong advocate about not doing that. Learned from my mistakes, luckily. But yeah, when I started off, I was just like, I'm gonna lose some weight. I'm gonna try and just feel better in my clothes, kind of thing. And I ended up losing 30 pounds. And then I was like, all right, but now I'm just small. And I just still wasn't feeling overly confident in myself. And I was like, well, this is not what I expected. Then I started going on social media and I found a couple of influencers that were females that lifted weights. And I was like, that's kind of cool. I want to try doing that. So from there, I started, kind of just following a couple things on social media, dabbling a little bit in lifting weights and what that kind of entailed. And then after about a year, I started working with a personal trainer who really taught me form and how to lift properly and what it should all kind of look like. And then it really just took off from there. Once I started seeing some muscle growth, I'm like, whoa, this is cool. This is fun. I feel so much better mentally and physically. And then from there, it really, really took off.
Yeah, that's amazing. It sounds like it was really like a pendulum swing from one end all the way to the other.
Yeah. It's been eye-opening.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's great that you went right into the lifting and you skipped that kind of awkward middle ground of hit abs every day, use the mini bands, want to get toned but not too bulky. So do you still do cardio, or is that completely?
It's still there. It kind of depends on the phase of my lifting that I'm in. So now I'm working with a new coach, and he now I'm currently in a bulk. So cardio is not super prevalent, but it's still there. I'm not going to say that I don't do cardio at all, but it's about 2 to 3 times a week, 20, 25 minutes, nothing wild. But then when I am in a cutting phase, cardio definitely does get bumped up. But I will say it's always strategic. It's no longer I'm going to spend an hour doing cardio every day, because that's what I was doing in the beginning. It was absurd. I was doing 45 minutes to an hour on the Stairmaster 6 times a week. And I would never recommend that to anyone starting off with any kind of fitness or lifting journey. Please don't do that. So now, yes, I still do cardio, but it's definitely strategically planned around my lifting.
Right, for sure. I give you a lot of props for doing a full hour on the Stairmaster. I don't think I could make it more than 20 minutes. I tap out.
That's my favorite form of cardio now, so at least it helps me with that. But yeah, 45 minutes to an hour, it was excessive. It was absurd. Like I keep saying, I don't recommend it.
Right. And I feel like in your case, you kind of you said you went that route after college, gained a little weight, that sort of thing. And I feel like that's a story that a lot of people can relate to. I think everyone's heard of freshman 15, and now we got the quarantine 15. And, the list
Yep.
of things goes on and on and on. And it's no secret that the general trend in America is towards higher BMIs, higher body fat percentages in the general population. And I feel like a lot of people aren't really sure where to go to start getting healthier and getting more fit. But everyone knows if they burn more calories, then they'll probably stop losing weight. So what do? They jump on a treadmill or an elliptical or a bike or something along
Right.
those lines, and they just burn calories as much as they can instead of hitting the weights and, getting
Right.
stronger and actually raising your resting metabolism.
Absolutely. I agree. I think it's also a lot of people just don't know where to start with that because for so long it was just kind of ingrained in everyone like, oh, do cardio, a ton of it, and then just eat a whole lot less, and then that's it. And I don't know why we still kind of have that formula. I think a lot of people just assume that that's the best way to go, but it's clearly the least sustainable. Um, so that's been something that I've had to learn because I did the whole cardio thing and I was like, okay, this is not something that I can keep up for my entire life, nor would I want to because it's just not that fun. I mean, some people do enjoy cardio and I think it has its time and place, but from a fun standpoint, enjoyable for me, like I can't imagine doing that much cardio all the time.
Now, benching plates or squatting or deadlifting, now that, on the other hand, that's a lot of fun, right?
That's the fun stuff. Yeah.
You have like a favorite exercise or favorite like muscle group to train or?
I think my favorite has to be shoulders and back to train. Those, like, I have such a fun time with those. Like, I just feel like that's where I feel like my strongest and my best. But from like the big, three big lifts, deadlifts are probably my favorite.
Yeah, for
Those are,
sure. For
yeah.
sure. Now, when you deadlift, is it conventional or sumo?
I actually do both.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, I hit legs twice a week. So in my last block of programming, I had pause sumos
Hmm.
at the beginning of the week, and then I had conventional deadlifts at the end of the week. So I was actually able to do both. And I personally prefer conventional way, way more than sumos. But I have gotten more comfortable with sumos, and it has helped, I think, my conventional also. So that's been cool to try both of them out.
Yeah, definitely. That's always a question I feel like people are so divided on. It's either one or the other, and it's never like both. So I think it's kind of cool how you take both of them and incorporate both into your training. That's not something we usually see people doing.
Right. Yeah. No, that's been cool. I never used to do it either until I started working with my coach, and I saw both of them programmed in there. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna follow it. He knows what he's doing, so
Yeah,
it's
definitely
been
just do
working.
them all. Yeah. So we were talking about some different things in the past when it comes to exercise. We were talking about like just in general, there's this trend in, the country that people are moving towards a less healthy state. Do you think there's any cultural influence on that? I know that you yourself come from a kind of unique cultural situation in that you're a first generation immigrant to Colombian
Mhm.
parents. Do you think that situations like that play any role in someone's health and fitness?
Oh, absolutely. I would definitely say when it comes to, from a nutritional standpoint and food wise, like growing up Colombian, like there was like whatever my parents cooked, especially my mom, like lots of homemade Colombian foods, and a lot of those foods tend to be fried and full of like high carbs and things like that. So growing up, like that was the food I was around, and healthy eating was never really a focal point. Probably up until I started realizing like what nutritious foods looked like and things like that. But I think also just from American cultural standpoint, like fast food and things like that are just an easier option, especially because we're always busy. People are always busy, and people are always looking for the quickest thing to move on to the next thing on their to-do list or the next task. So picking up something on the way on the drive is always going to be faster than dedicating time to meal prep on a weekend or on a weeknight for the week, things like that. And then in terms of just fitness in general and lifting, from that cultural background that I kind of grew up with, I definitely would say it's pretty taboo. Just because like my parents are very like old school Colombian, and when I started lifting, like to them it was like, what are you doing? Like it wasn't a norm. Like it's not a norm as much, I would say, as it is now for females to lift. But definitely once I started like going to the gym and like putting on muscle, it was like, oh, whoa, that's different. So breaking those kind of cultural, ties has been interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely. You have to kind of go against the grain when it comes to this sort of stuff. And I feel like that's something, again, that a lot of people can relate to. Maybe they just come from a family that didn't exercise and they're kind of going
Right.
against that mold. Maybe it's more food related as it relates to culture, like you said. Wherever you're from, whether it's Colombia in your case, or Asia, Africa, wherever in the world you're from, there's certainly some kind of unique approach to food and different traditions around food. And that's one of the things I love about other cultures and just travel in general, is you get to experience that sort of thing. But all of that has a direct impact on your health and fitness, right? I think we've all heard the phrase, you are what you eat, before. So if
Right.
you're, constantly living on, like, say, the Mediterranean diet, for example, because you're in Italy, odds are you're pretty healthy. And, that's a gift in that sense. Versus, as
Right.
you mentioned, the American diet, where, a lot of people eat at, your traditional fast food places, get the quick fried stuff. And even if it's not fried, the quality just isn't there anymore. And it is definitely a lifestyle problem, like you said. And it's hard to get people in America to just slow down and embrace like stillness in general. It just feels like everything
Right.
is so instantaneous anymore. Like, you can get your groceries delivered in an hour, you can get like any kind of restaurant food delivered to your door. Like, we live in such an instant world where nothing is delayed anymore. And I think that creates another like problem with fitness for most people, is we want results quick, when in reality fitness is one of the
Yeah.
last few things, along with like faith, I would say, that doesn't give you instant gratification and instant results.
Right. And I think that ends up being a huge deterrent for a lot of people when they get started, because they're so used to everything else in their life being so instant. And like you said, that instant gratification, that fitness journeys are that. It's a journey for a reason, and it's not going to be something that you do for a week or 2 weeks or even a month and you're like, okay, that's it. And it's not something that you can just stop. Like you can, but if you want it to really be something that you incorporate in a daily life, like you have to constantly be working at it. And I think that's the part that a lot of people don't want to understand, because I think they know it in the back of their head, but it's that effort, it's that hard work, it's the dedication, it's the commitment to it that people find really hard to do when they're already committed to X, Y, and Z and 100 other things in their daily life.
Yeah, for real. There's definitely like a Dunning-Kruger effect with it too. And you've probably seen that with teaching as well, especially teaching Spanish, because people have, like, kids are learning a whole new language with that. So with fitness or learning a new language, like, you might roll into class or the gym on day one, and you might feel a little confident, a little cocky, like, yeah, I got this, this will be easy. At least that was
Mm-hmm.
my experience trying to learn Spanish. I was like, oh yeah, I watched, like, there's like an episode of Dora in my childhood somewhere there. I'll be fine. Like, I know the basic hola como estás. And then you get into it.
Yeah.
And once you're like, up to your waist deep into it after a couple weeks, you're just like, holy crap, this is a lot more than I thought it was gonna be. And again, that applies to, fitness, learning, whatever.
Right.
Amazing
Yeah.
how, you get thrown in a situation, you think you got it, and then all of a sudden that soreness starts to hit and things start to stack up, new exercise, haven't moved this way before, that feels tight, and it's just like that huge wake up call for you.
It's always going to be, I think, a learning curve when it comes to fitness. And the deeper you get in it, like the more there is to learn and the more there is to adjust and, work on and improve upon it. That's been, I think, the biggest thing that I've learned is, like, when I first started lifting versus the way I lift now, like, so much has changed and I'm still constantly improving, whether it's form, whether it's technique, and what it means to do different exercises in different ways. And like I feel like I'm never going to learn it all, which is also the part that I love, because there's still more. There's still something else. There's still another way to improve. And that's kind of been like, I think one of the things that keeps me in it a lot of the times is like, I've done this and now I have a new training block, and now I have a new exercise that I need to perform that I might have not done in the past. And that it like is like a big reset, because then I'm like, all right, I'm back to my humbled, uncomfortable, I need to go use this machine that I've never used before, and now I have to try and figure it out and go from there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I got those same feelings when I switched gyms too. Like, whole new gym, whole new environment. Like, I've worked out before. I generally know what I'm doing, but it's just different when all of a sudden everything changes.
Right. And I think that that's something that I try to highlight, at least on my social media, is that like, just because I've been lifting for a while doesn't mean that I also don't have those uncomfortable moments or those times where I'm like, oh man, I really don't know what I'm doing right now. Like and it sometimes you feel embarrassed, and sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, is everyone watching me? You're like, no, like no one else is really paying attention to you. But it just, that's something that I try to highlight. Like, doesn't matter where you are in your fitness journey, whether it's you're stepping foot day one or you've been doing it for years, like you're still going to have uncomfortable moments, and like that's okay. It's all just kind of part of the whole deal.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And you can always drown those uncomfortable moments out with music that's loud enough, right?
Yes, always.
Do you have any go-tos as far as music goes, or do you share your Spotify playlists or?
I haven't recently, but it kind of varies from week to week. Like I tend to find like a couple of songs, and those will be my go-to songs for like 2 to 3 weeks, like on repeat, like relentlessly. And then like I'll find a new song, and then that'll be the song for the next couple of weeks. But it honestly varies, depending on what I'm lifting. Like leg days need to be very loud, in my face kind of music, and then other days like it's whatever I'm feeling.
So it can literally be anything from like country to like rap to dubstep to.
Yeah, I would say most music besides country. Probably anything but country.
Yeah, I really tip my hat to people who can like lift to like Jason Aldean or Brad Paisley. Like I've done it before, but it's more of like a hometown thing for me because I'm from the middle of nowhere, high school graduating
Gotcha.
class of like 45 people. So like to me,
Oh, wow.
that's like a big hometown thing. Like, when I'm home, I'll crank up some BG and that'll be my workout. But when I'm, at a place like this, more city developed, there's actually people around and not just deer and bear. Then I kind of go with the more like fit in kind of music. Cause like, if I walk by and someone hears what's going through my headphones and, they hear like Eminem or, Five Finger Death Punch, like they're just like, okay, that guy's getting it. But if they hear like, a little twang and a banjo or something like that, then I will get some weird looks, and then everyone might start looking at me a little bit.
Maybe.
Yeah, and like I don't know about you, but I've had cases before where like my music will start playing, but it doesn't connect to my headphones right away. So then like
Yeah.
everyone in the general vicinity knows what you're going to be working up to.
Yeah. Well, hey, whatever works, whatever gets you hyped, gets you going, then just listen to it.
Yeah.
Like I've had days where I'll listen to like, I think I've even listened to like some like motivational like speeches, like short ones, like two or
Yeah.
3 minutes, and like that's what I'll listen to before hitting a heavy set or something like that. So honestly, whatever helps.
Yeah, that hits different. Wow. I like that. You said like you listen to it before a heavy set. Do you usually rest like, 3, 5 minutes between sets? Or are you going like more of like a power lifter approach on some things?
On some things, yeah. So usually my squats and deadlifts, I'll have, since they're usually my heavier sets, I'll have like a 3 to 5 minute rest period and then get after it. Because those leg days just drain me. Like they take the life out of me. Squats in particular, like I can't stand squats. Like they're my least favorite exercise. I do them twice a week. I get it done, but I do not enjoy them.
Do you prefer, if you had to do them because you kind of have to, would you rather do back or front squat?
Back squat, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I I feel like it's always interesting when someone chooses like an off squat variation too. Like some people will pick like, oh, I'd rather do like, the zombie squat, or, someone was telling me about, what was it, like this Jefferson squat variation. Like I had to look it up mid episode because I had no idea what it was. But the
I have
barbell was like
no
literally
idea. I have
between,
no idea what that is.
yeah, the barbell was like literally between their legs, and they were like bending down and squatting it. And it was like, it was like a weird squat deadlift combination. I couldn't quite wrap my head around it.
Yeah, no, I like to keep it simple. It's what something I like about my coach also. Just very basic exercises, nothing crazy like some of the stuff you sometimes see on social media. And just like, what are we doing here? Like, and
Yeah.
that's one of the things I've learned also is like basic and simple movements are going to get you really, really far versus like trying to overly complicate them and add in weird variations to stuff. So I try to keep it as basic as I can.
No, I completely agree. I feel like, so when I look at exercises, I look at like four basic quadrants, and quadrant one is basic, like, general movements that everyone should be able to do. Like everyone should be able to do a basic squat or a basic push up, and those are things that, we could all do every day and be fine with. Like, body weight squats within reason are not going to burn you out. Like you can do that movement daily. And then as you work up the quadrants, you start getting more and more specific. And like, quadrant 4 would be like preparing for like Olympic lifting competition. Even though you
Right.
need to be good at like, the clean and jerk or whatever, you're not going to spend, 95% of your training doing that one lift. And I think a lot of times people spend too much time getting fancy with their training and not enough time just doing the basic things really well and sticking to what works. I think if you bench, squat, deadlift, and then throw a couple accessories in there, so maybe like a lunge variation, RDL, step up, and then like pull up, dip, maybe a couple shoulder press variations and a couple rows, like you've got yourself a pretty solid split already.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even just recently, I've really noticed like my leg days, I only have like 4 exercises, maximum 5 exercises, but because like of volume and, the intensity, like that is where it really, you can really crank it up. So you don't need 8 to 10 exercises every single day that you're lifting. I think the 4 to 5, that main ones that you're choosing, you need to really be going all in for and really pushing yourself on those exercises. And it's more than enough. Like add Bulgarian split squats to any leg day and you're guaranteed to just, be toast at the end of your lift.
I cannot echo that anymore. That's a real love-hate relation exercise for sure. And I think it comes down to a battle of quality over quantity with your training. At what point
Right.
are you throwing exercises in just to check the box, one? And two, just because you're doing more of something doesn't necessarily mean it's better. That was something Bob King recently shared on the podcast. He said, difficult does not automatically mean it's better. Anyone can leave you feeling smoked. If you want to feel like you got your butt kicked, go in the gym and do as many burpees as you can in 7 minutes. And even if you, hit like 100 or 150 or something impressive, one, there's always going to be someone who does more. And two, it sucks. And it didn't really take any like skill. It's not really going to give you any long-term benefit training like that. So if that's not how you want to train, or if that's not going to get you where you want to go, then why are you training like that?
Right. I agree.
So what's kind of going on with the future for you, Marianna? Where are you kind of looking to head in the realm of health and fitness?
So I've recently decided that I would like to compete in a bodybuilding competition, hopefully next year. Never thought I'd ever even consider it. And then once I really started lifting and putting on muscle, I had a lot of people approach me and ask and be like, hey, well, like, do you compete? Like, would you ever compete? Is that something you do? Like, how have you not yet? And I'm like, I don't even know. That was never on my radar. That was never like the ultimate goal. Like, oh, I want to compete one day. Because some people, that is like where they start. They're like, oh, I want to compete. And that's where they start their fitness journey. but that was never really, like I said, on my radar. And then more and more people kept asking me and approaching me about it. And then I started following some bodybuilders, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. So that's kind of been, like in the back of my mind, slowly creeping its way to my goals list. So I would ideally like to maybe try like a figure competition or wellness category, but that's that's possible. And then I've also thought about, well, maybe I'll dabble in some like powerlifting. Like I have gotten a lot stronger. I enjoy these lifts, and my coach in particular is like, that's his expertise, is powerlifting. So I could go that direction too. So having the options, I'm just kind of like, I could do either of those, do both of them, do one and then the other. So possibilities seem really wide open there. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing. It'd be really cool if you could do both and kind of go with that. I think they call it like power builder approach, right? Where you lift heavy, but also, get to go up on stage and compete on more of the physique and aesthetic side of things as well. And I think that competition is really beneficial for people too, from a health and fitness side. Like you said yourself, you used to play sports growing up, and there's something about that competitive edge that just brings out the best in people.
Yeah, I know. I could see myself getting quite competitive with it. So we'll see. But just having that be an option for me is like, in and of itself, is already like so cool. Because again, I never thought I'd even be at a level where I would have someone ask me like, hey, do you compete? Like I've had random people come up to me and be like, oh, like, do you compete? And I'm like, me? Like you're talking like, oh, oh, thanks. Like it's such a, it's such a nice compliment. And now having that option, like I might as well just go for it and get the experience at least.
Yeah, definitely. Do you ever like give like a witty response just to crack yourself up? Like, no, actually, this is my first day in the gym. Can you show me how to use like this or that?
No, I haven't yet. I usually just get like very like shy. I'm like, oh, thank you. Like I don't know. I like forget sometimes that like how, because I get so zoned in the gym, and like everything else is just like background noise, that like when someone like stops me and like asks me something, I'm kind of like thrown off. I'm like, oh, hi, like thanks.
So you get yourself hyped up with that, dry scoop pre-workout and the like pump up
Yep.
session in the car right before.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're imperative.
So is that like a late night, like dry scoop, push through like take all the stress from the day and get it out? Or is it like a early morning kind of thing? Like I've got to prepare for teaching and I just need to get all of this out before I walk in the classroom.
So it kind of depends. I was doing morning workouts for a while. So I was lifting at 4 a.m. before school. And those were like usually my upper body days. So that was fine. But now that I'm lifting heavier and like really getting into my bulk, I found that I need more meals in my day. I need more food, so that way I can actually lift heavy. So usually as of like the last couple of weeks, I will lift right after school. So that's usually around like 4:30, getting that evening rush, that crew. So yeah, it's been a huge stress relief from work, being able to like, all right, I'm done with work, I can go lift and really put in all my energy and stress and anything like into my lift.
Yeah, definitely. And I can imagine it's probably been very difficult to say the least when it comes to teaching over the course of the past, couple years, just the way things have been from in person to online and in person wearing a mask, because a lot of learning a new language comes from like, the mouth position and just like the overall pronunciation and the way words roll off the tongue and that sort of thing. And if you can't see that, I feel like it's a lot harder to pick up on those things.
Absolutely. Teaching has been quite the struggle for the last 3 years. And granted, I've only been teaching for 3 years. I started my teaching career literally like 6 months before the pandemic hit. So I have yet to really know what a normal school year kind of looks like. I feel like all I've ever known, I've taught more in a pandemic than I have not. So it's been a challenge to say the least, which is why I think my fitness and gym life has really taken off, because it's been such a big like stress relief mentally, physically, from all of the hardships that teachers have been facing over the last 3 years now.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Have you felt like you've been getting enough like support from like, your school and parents and that sort of thing during the time, or have people like less understanding than optimal through that? Or have you, as your like coach and like family and other like friends and people that you're connected with, have you been getting enough support you feel, or has this really been a kind of personal struggle to say it one way?
So I work in a great district. Like I have really great colleagues and really great administration. I mean, I'm sure every teacher in every district has different viewpoints, has different opinions based on that. But I am very lucky to work with the people that I do. And like we have a very close, at least my department, like has a very close knit relationship. So like I've been able to get great support from them and like just from like a, hey, like I just need a vent, like, cause I just had a really hard day, or like being able to bounce ideas off of each other and like lessons, or like if they needed to be out because of COVID related stuff, or if their kids got sick or this or that, like we have each other's back. So that's been super helpful to me. And then a lot of my friends are also teachers, so they all get the struggles. So they are all, like, oh yeah, that happens to me too. Or they're very validating in the, the difficulties that I face and vice versa. So as difficult as it's been, like I am grateful to say I have great support systems. And just like even friends on social media or other teachers that I've met from other parts in the country, like everyone is facing the similar struggles. So it really helps you feel less like alone and facing all of this on a daily basis. Cause I know I have friends I can call up at the end of the day and be like, this is the day I had, but they get it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I was actually going to ask you that next is about the social media side of things. Like, how has that played into it? And, what your typical follower is like, and how you've been able to engage with people over this time. Because, for at least part of the last 2 years, a lot of us were at home, and that gave us extra time to connect with people online in ways that we wouldn't have otherwise.
Right. So I started my Instagram. I'm coming up on 3 years now. So I started my Instagram way before my TikTok. And that started off as just like a way for me to document my progress, just kind of keep myself accountable. Cause that was like right around the time that I started like lifting. So like I was really whole newbie, like had no idea what I was doing, but I was documenting it. I was like, this is where I'm starting. Like I'm just gonna use this for myself. And like it was mostly just like friends, a couple family members following me, nothing crazy. And then like all of a sudden, like in the last year, it's really like picked up some traction, and I've met a lot of really cool people and like have been able to share more of my fitness journey. And like not only now is it a way to keep myself accountable and track my progress, but like I've just been able to share so much about where I started and where I am now, and just help motivate other people get started, and motivate particularly females to lift, because that's where like I really feel like a strong advocate for, because for so long I was so like I don't know if that's for me kind of thing, but seeing how much I've grown just from a mental and physical standpoint, like that's what I really want to put out there. And then I didn't start getting into TikTok probably until like maybe August of this past year. So that has been the most recent, because for the longest time, especially during quarantine, I'm like, I'm not doing TikTok. It's dumb. That's not for me. Like, no way am I ever going to get sucked into TikTok. And I refused to download it for like over a year. I was like, no way. Like my friends would send me TikToks and I'm like, I'm not downloading it. I'll watch it, but I'm not going to download it. And then last summer, I downloaded it and I don't know what it was. I don't know like what the trend was or whatever it was, that I just kind of started going with it, started making videos. And then that kind of like took off. I started again meeting so many people in the fitness community and other teachers, and like being able to just connect with all these people and share my experiences and hear theirs. And it's been so fun. Like now I can't imagine not having my social media accounts, because it's been like another form of like stress relief. Like even from teaching or lifting, like I can make like funny TikToks or funny videos, and like other people are like, oh, that's like that happens to me too. And I'm like, oh, I've seen that happen to me too. So you're able to connect with a lot of people that you otherwise probably wouldn't.
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely the positive side of social media. And I think, when used correctly, social media is such a powerful tool for those type of things exactly. And you never know what kind of impact you can have on someone just through the things that you've been doing. I was going to ask too. I I haven't checked out all of your TikTok videos, but have you ever posted any of these like dance trends or anything like that? Because I personally cannot dance to save my life.
Yeah, no, I am not huge into like the dancing trends. Like they're fun to watch and like, but I haven't tried them yet. But you know what? I won't say never because I used to say I wouldn't get TikTok and here I am. So maybe one day I'll feel good enough or confident enough to try one of those dancing ones. But as of right now, no, I haven't done any of those trends.
Yeah, I mean, just double scoop the pre-workout and then anything's possible, right?
That's true. Yep, that could very well be the catalyst for it all.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So we were talking about, in general, you were sharing, tips and insight for people along their health and fitness journey. What's your kind of general advice to someone who's just starting out when, they're getting into fitness or lifting or whatever it is? What's your general tips that you give people, whether it's guys, girls, whatever?
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is that the small habits really add up to the big results because I know that I used to be in a place where I would try to change everything. I would try and say, like, all right, I'm going to work out 5 to 6 times a week and I'm going to cut out these foods and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do this. And it was like this daunting list of things that were not habits yet. And trying to change it all at once is really, really intimidating and can be honestly setting you up more so for failure rather than success because you're trying to do too much at once. So I feel like just doing things like, all right, I'm going to work out 3 times a week and picking those 3 days and sticking to just those 3 days. I'm going to drink more water. Like that's it. That's my goal for this 1 month. Like more water, gym 2 to 3 times a week. And then from there, what else can I improve on? Am I getting 8 hours of sleep? Am I resting enough? I think it's like those small habits and small things really do make the difference. And like for myself, like when I was doing early morning lifts or even when I do afternoon lifts, like I pack my gym bag every single night. I make sure it's all prepped. I'll even put it in my car. So that way I don't have the option to not go to the gym in the morning. So it's like the things that seem so minuscule actually make those bigger habits possible.
Yeah, for sure. Just in general, not like you want to sweat the small stuff and you don't want to jump into something not knowing what you're getting into, right? Don't test the depth of a river with both feet, so to speak. And that's great advice, not just for people starting out with fitness, but just life in general, right? If you're going to try and learn a new language, like say you want to learn Spanish or Portuguese, like if you jump in and try and do the whole Rosetta Stone course in a day or whatever you're doing, it's not going to go well. So if you kind of break it up and go a little bit more piecemeal and go slowly, little bit, consistently, and let that build, let it snowball, before you know it, you'll be moving better and faster and have so much momentum that you're never going to stop. But you have to start and you have to start small.
Right. And I think just allowing yourself to start wherever it is that you are, like we all start somewhere. And that's something that I always remind myself and remind other people, like, yes, this is my physique right now, but this is not anywhere where I used to be and where I started before. And like I had to really, like you said, like you've got to start small, you got to start at the bottom, and we all did. And you can talk to any single person that's been lifting forever. It's like you still remember where you started. And at least I always try to remember where I started. And that's why like I take so many progress pictures, and I took so many progress pictures when I was starting, because now I can look back and be like, that's where I was. That's not where I am now, but like we all had that one starting point.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like because everyone's starting point is so different, whether your age or what gets you into fitness or, your weight, body composition, whatever it is, everyone's starting point is so different. And that gives everyone a unique journey. And none of them are ever really comparable to one another. Each one just kind of stands on its own. And, what works for me or what works for you might not work for someone that follows either of us. So it's really just something that's so individualized to the person. And I feel like, in my sense, I've coached people and been a trainer for people. And I feel like, to a certain point, I'm giving them exercises and sets and reps, but sometimes they can go out and find those on their own. And it's more about coaching them through the fitness process than it is coaching them through one specific workout. With that, Marianna, is there anything else that you want to share with people who are listening in today?
Always remind yourselves that like you're way more capable than you probably think you are, and that your mental strength is only going to also improve along with the physical. And even vice versa is true. Like I found like the stronger that I get physically like has helped me overcome a lot of mental barriers at the same time. So it's like you get to a point where your fitness journey is, yes, it's a lot of physical, but once you start seeing like those mental transformations and like those mental improvements, and like I said, like the gym is my stress relief. Like that is my safe haven at the end of a difficult day, and that's where I'm able to kind of hit a reset button. And so just reminding people that like it shouldn't always be physical. Like you should always be pushing yourself from a mental standpoint also, and then that will also translate into your physical and fitness journey.
Yeah, definitely. Grow what's going on up here first. And I feel like once you start to make those connections between fitness and, your mindset and your discipline, that's when life gets really exciting and you become unstoppable in all areas of life, right? It's not just growing physically in the gym. You grow in so many other ways. There was a book I read a while back called Little Black Book by Mike Matthews that literally talks all about that connects what you're doing in the gym to what you do in the rest of your life. And it really starts with like cultivating mindset, setting goals for yourself, and then doing the work. And that's what fitness is. You set goals,
Right.
you do the work, and then you either maintain or you find another mountain to climb and you keep on going. And if you're doing that every single day, day in and day out with fitness, you're going to start looking at the rest of your life just like that.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
And in general, again, that's something that I feel like we all need to hear and remind ourselves of here in America, because as of pre-pandemic, this data was from like 4 or 5 years ago. The average American is about 25 pounds overweight and spends 5 hours a day watching TV, has $130,000 in debt, and has less than $1,000 in their savings account. So we literally live in a society where we sit down, we eat, we watch things, and we consume, and we pay bills, and then we die. And there's so much more to life than that. Like life is so much more exciting. There's so many other paths that we can explore, but it starts with growing yourself physically and mentally. And once you do that, the rest of your life just kind of falls right into place.
Exactly. Exactly right. It's a great way to look at it.
With that, Marianna, thank you so much for your time and for coming on the show. Really enjoyed having you on and discussing all things health and fitness with you.
Of course. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Brawn Body Health and Fitness Podcast. If you like this episode, please make sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date with all the new stuff that we have coming out every week. And make sure you share the episode with a friend so that way we can continue to grow and have a positive influence on other people. Last, we would really appreciate it if you left us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Spotify, or whatever platform you're listening on. Thank you, and we'll see you on Wednesday.